Hello, hello. So I'm slowly going to start letting everyone into today's webinar. I'll give everyone maybe another 30 seconds or so to get comfortable, grab a cup of coffee, some tea, a beverage, and we'll get started. Meantime, Nick, Max, both of you can hear me? Fantastic, okay. Just a few more seconds. You can see the screen, no issues there. Perfect. Awesome. So I would love to begin. There you go. People are slowly making their way. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to get started. I want to be mindful of the time. Welcome to Quad Education's webinar, Choosing a Major That's Right for You. Before we get started on the content portion, I just do have a couple of housekeeping rules, so to speak. These webinars are recorded, so you will receive a recording in your inbox in case you have to pop out later or you'd like to review. It'll be yours to do what you wish. We're looking at running it for about 45 minutes, 30 minutes or more of content. And then we love to leave some room at the end where you actually get that time to get your questions answered by our wonderful panelists tonight, Max and Nick, who will go in and introduce themselves fairly shortly. So just a little bit about who we are. My name is Andrea, and like I said, I work for Quad Education. Whether you're new to Quad or you've been on a couple of our webinars, we're super excited to have you here tonight and to share a little bit about who we are and what we offer. So who is Quad? Quad is a globally recognized college admissions consulting firm with the largest team of admissions counselors in the world. With a 98% success rate, our students are 11 times more likely to get accepted at their top choice colleges. We assist students from 6th grade to undergraduate transfer candidates in applying to their dream schools. We are firm believers in starting the college application process as early as possible. For our middle schoolers and early high schoolers, we offer something we call college candidacy and profile development. This process focuses on building each student's resume to highlight their strengths. We want the candidate to stand out, so we will work with your student or you to identify clubs and leadership positions, find extracurricular activities and volunteer opportunities, and assist in creating next year's schedule. Our college development program extends outside of the classroom, of course, the regular school year. Since schools are looking at more than academics these days, our counselors also help plan summer activities. This can include summer courses, internships, shadowing, research opportunities, and giving back to the community through encouraging students to create service projects. Once we've helped shape an outstanding candidate, we extend our support in helping to shape the perfect application. We're here to help with comprehensive application support from picking the right major, hence tonight's webinar, to building a balanced list of schools, activity list creation, obtaining letters of recommendation, interview preparation, and applying to scholarships. Our admissions counselors are also essay writing experts who will brainstorm, outline, and edit until your supplemental essays and personal statements are perfect. These essays serve as a platform to showcase the best aspect of our students, drawing connection between their individual life journeys and the overarching themes of each school they apply to. Whether it's your main application or those extra essays for scholarships, we've got your back with unlimited edits. Overall, our goal is to build the perfect candidate and application. We utilize every tool in our skill set to ensure the products we create with our students stand out from the rest of the pack. If you're interested in learning more about us and our packages, we offer personalized free consultations via video, phone, or email, ensuring individualized support. Our admissions counselors are always ready and willing to help you through the process, so you don't have to navigate it alone, no matter where you are in the application process. With that being said, I'd love to pass it over to our two panelists who'll go in and introduce themselves. Nick, did you want to go first? Your photo just happens to be there.
Yeah, sure. So hello, everyone. I am Nick Cavey. I am a former admissions folk at UCLA, as well as a doctoral program reader for UCLA. That's also where I did my PhD. My background is in higher education as a field specifically, so my day-to-day work outside of Quad is all about improving the field of higher education, improving access, and yeah, so I not only have lived the applying to college life, the reading applications life, but I also do day-to-day research on things like faculty hiring and competitive admissions and the cost of education. So I have been in the higher education game for quite a while, and it's really just what I'm most passionate about, which is why I'm here. And I'll popcorn to Max.
Thank you, Nick. Hi, everyone. I'm Max. For the past 5 years, I've helped kids get into every Ivy Plus school. I went to Brown University. I used to work as a newspaper television journalist. So when it comes to your essays and spicing up what you're writing, that's my forte. That's what I enjoy. I've been working for Quad for the past several years, and Nick and I are going to launch an exciting, rollicking conversation today. So thank you for joining us.
So I just want to quickly hop back in here and just give you a brief summary. Oh, it took a second for my camera to come back on. Just a brief summary of some of the topics we'll be chatting about today. So we'll be chatting about why your college major matters, the main types of college majors, how to assess your interests and strengths to choose a major, and of course that FAQ that we mentioned. Oh.
Thanks, Andrea. Perfect.
No problem.
All right, folks. So why your college major matters. First off, there are many different philosophies here, okay? One route you could take is, hey, I need to maximize my earning potential. I'm taking out God knows how much in loans. College is an investment. I need to pay it off. That's one way of looking at it. Another way, in terms of what you should major in, another way of looking at it is which major is going to give me the skill set so that after I graduate college, I can apply it to any field. I can be versatile. I can apply these critical thinking skills. So it's one's looking at it much more vocationally. What can you get out of it concretely? And the other way of looking is, I guess, more philosophically, but it could also pay off financially. And this question of why your college major matters, it's important both in the application process, what you're putting down, and which major can maximize your chance of getting into the school. But it also matters in terms of you and your life satisfaction and what you want to do in your life. So essentially, it shapes your career opportunities, impacts your academic satisfaction, and could lead to personal growth. It's a really important question. There are multiple facets, and today Nick and I are going to discuss some of them, whether it be financial, whether it be philosophical, whether it be pedagogic. We're open to your input, and this is really an ongoing conversation for you or for your child.
Yeah, and just to add to the end of this slide, it's really just all about, checking the boxes that you need to check. So for instance, I'm currently hiring at my day job. I can only consider, based off the bylaws of the company that I work for, people that have degrees in statistics. So if you are interested in a particular job, you might want to look at the, credentials of the folks that currently hold that job. Outside of that, it's really exactly what Max said of, you might be wanting to pursue a passion. You might want to be maximizing earnings potential, all that jazz. We'll talk about that more as we progress. So as I just said, linking majors to careers is very clear, within certain fields. So I work in my day-to-day in the field of nursing, and you're just not going to be hired as a nurse without a degree in the field of nursing, whether that be a bachelor's of nursing, a master's of nursing, whatever your heart desires. Similarly, in a lot of other career fields, engineering, statistics, software design, there are certain keywords that need to get flagged in a job application or in a resume review. And with the advances in artificial intelligence, we're increasingly seeing a lot of people get filtered out of pipelines because they don't necessarily have the subset of degrees that folks that are in the hiring realm are looking for. In addition to that, there's also majors that offer really broad applicable skills across various fields. You're always going to see language majors and fine arts and language arts majors in different roles, because those fields give you the skills to be strong communicators and have strong soft skills in a way that can't necessarily be taught in a direct program. And so really your major, as we discussed at the top, can influence your earning potential and your job stability, but it can also open a lot of doors and pathways. And so thinking critically about your major or majors, I don't know about you, Max, but I am a multiple major person just because I liked having options, can really just influence where you go and what you can do.
What were your majors, Nick?
I was physiology, so pre-med, and then Spanish and Portuguese, and then also economics.
So that Nick's a good example of someone who bridged STEM, social sciences, and the humanities all
Right.
together. And we're gonna be talking more about the distinction between all three groups later in this webinar.
And how about you, Matt? Journalism?
Middle East Studies,
Ah,
Arabic.
excellent.
So, yes. So academic satisfaction, aligning major with interests. So two ways of looking at this, folks. One being aligning major with interests. Okay, so if you're applying to a college, the admissions officer is looking at your applicant file holistically. And sometimes I have clients who ask me, should I put a certain major down to give me a better chance of getting into X school? The issue is if you pick a totally random major that has nothing to do with your interests, nothing to do with your extracurriculars, nothing to do with the rest of your recommendation letters or who you are, it's not going to feel organic or authentic. So I would really be careful playing that game. And whatever major you put down in your application needs to line up with the rest of your applicant file. That said, away from that zero-sum admissions game, the other way of looking at this, you should pick a major that you actually want to study. You're going to be studying 4 years of your life, God knows how many credits, trying to delve into a subject. Please embark on a field that you want to do, that you want to specialize in.
Yeah. One other key point to add here, which Max, thanks for teeing it up by talking about the admissions, journey. Often identifying a major and identifying a specific major is extremely important depending on the school and the school type that you're applying to. There are certain schools where they are relatively easy to get into if you are applying to a certain major based off of the enrollment demographics and what Max described of. You don't want to put all your eggs in that basket because there's a perceived bump, but there's also the opposite direction of there are schools that the general admissions criteria are relatively competitive and the criteria for a particular major are even more competitive than any other major in the school. So identifying those majors and path of study is super important. The other thing too to consider is thinking about a major early and thinking about what comprises a major can also set you up to apply to scholarships. A lot of schools have major specific and department specific scholarships that you can learn about when you're in the application pipeline versus if you decided a major after you're already there, you're kind of immediately not eligible for those things.
Good points, Nick. Good points.
Yeah. In addition to aligning it with your interests, I also think it's really important to think about lifelong learning and growth. For instance, for me, I was a Spanish and Portuguese major. I don't have to use Spanish or Portuguese in my day-to-day work, but it has, instilled in me an interest in language learning and in appreciating the, cultures of other countries and places where languages other than English are taught and spoken. And so that has also allowed me to approach challenges and opportunities in my life differently than, folks that just did, an up and down major. Engineering with no social sciences, no humanities teaches you how to do engineering. It doesn't necessarily teach you critical thinking and soft skills and how to perform research and how to write. And so really considering a major that gives you those softer skills or considering a handful of majors allows for that continuous growth in your field. The other thing to consider is that a lot of fields have a terminus at the baccalaureate level. And, not that I'm trying to push graduate school on any of you or your children, but it is important to know that, like, for instance, if you get in a class that I teach, if you get a baccalaureate degree in statistics, you probably will need graduate training in statistics to be competitive in that field versus there are other fields where kind of baccalaureate training is the terminus. And so thinking about lifelong learning and thinking about, the path that you're walking down will help make these decisions.
Building on Nick's point of lifelong learning and soft skills, I think it's often today I work with students who are like, can I major in English? Can I major in history? Can I do the humanities? The payoff's not going to be as good. Am I going to get a job? And I would say we should look at it more holistically in terms of return on investment, meaning that these skills of critical thinking, soft skills, can be applicable to so many different industries, so many different fields. And if it embarks on you a pursuit of lifelong learning, it will make you a better human being. Okay, in every aspect possible, whether it be earning potential, whether it be life satisfaction. So please don't disregard a major just because in the here and now you may not see practically what it can do, but 10, 20, 30 years down the road, it can really set you up for success.
And not to get too theoretical, but Max, you talked about this earlier, the sort of vocational versus philosophical paths for picking a major. The other thing too is major selection is also something that doesn't not come up in professional conversations. You know, I have connected with a lot of folks on the basis of being a language major and sharing, you know, a shared interest in particular books or art or film or music in a specific language that has provided me that soft social capital that doesn't come from the technical skills and the, you know, hard and fast credentialism. It comes from that human-to-human connection, and so that's also a point to consider here.
Absolutely. And as we touched upon before, Nick is a good example of someone who broached these many different types of college majors. I think you said you checked off all three. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, not creative arts and design, but the other.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So normally I group together creative arts and design within liberal arts and humanities. Here we have a 4-part division. You have, again, in terms of types of college majors, STEM, science, technology, engineering, math. Those are the ones considered, you know, tend to be the most lucrative, earning potential-wise. Then you have in the middle, if you think of it as a spectrum, the social sciences, whether that be economics, whether that be psychology, whether that even be political science, whether political science kind of bridges both. They claim they're a social science, but questionable at times. And that's with business. And then you have more the humanities. You have the languages, you have history, you have philosophy, you have English. And outside of that, you have creative arts and design, whether that be photography, whether that be painting on canvas, whether that be going to more of like an art school, like a RISD. So these are the main types of majors to consider. Again, Nick being a great example, you can double major. You can have 1 foot in STEM and 1 foot in the humanities. You can bridge. You can go back and forth. So it's not just a silo. You have options, especially if, let's say you're really passionate about photography. I was just working with a kid today who loves photography, but whose dad's pushing him to go into engineering. I said, okay, do a double major. Spend half your time in studio and half your time, you know, crunching numbers. He likes math. He's good at math. So you can do that. It's not an either or game. You can pick. You can go back and forth, and you can double major.
Yeah. Another thing too to that point is you're not locking into a major for all of college. At the schools that I attended, the physiology majors, 75% of freshmen changed their major after the first 2 semesters. And that might be to a different STEM major, a different pre-medical major, or just a completely different thing. And that's not necessarily because that major was scary or hard or bad. It's just because college should be a time for exploration and for exploring different paths and understanding, you know, how different fields integrate with each other and build on each other. And so, you know, don't be afraid to start someplace and move through to another.
Echoing Nick's point, normally you have until, I think, second semester sophomore year to formally pick a major. So you do have 2-3 semesters to dabble, eat a little, nibble, feel it out, and figure out what you want to major in.
And if you or your children are truly apathetical to the nature of picking a major, there are a lot of schools and institutions that offer general studies programs. Columbia is a great example of just a program type that is designed for people to take a really broad swath of classes and that don't necessarily lock you into anything. But with that, we'll pivot to Andrea.
Hi, just want to pop back in here to see if there's any questions in the chat thus far. I didn't necessarily see any, but again, I encourage our audience, any sort of questions, whether it's about college majors, whether it's about just the college application process. As you can see, Max, Nick, extremely well educated within, well, their education, but they have a wealth of knowledge about the process. So we encourage you to pop those questions in the chat, and we'll make sure that one of them gets back to you. Also, we have this awesome tool on our website, What Should I Study in College? It's comprehensive. Definitely just do a quick search. It'll definitely come up. Spend a few minutes if you're really not sure, or if you have some questions, or you don't even know where to begin. Really great resource. And when we create these, we actually liaison with our counselors and different admissions counselors to make sure that the questions that we're asking and the outcomes that we're creating make sense. Gentlemen, I will bring it back to you.
So starting with STEM majors, we kind of covered this at the high level in the previous slide, but really just focused on the core letters of STEM: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Generally, these are going to be more technical, hard skills programs, things like engineering, mathematics, statistics, and there's a high demand in the job market for these fields. But I will say that the high demand in the job market is also met with a varying range of different levels of credentialism. There are a lot of boot camps out there that purport to teach the same thing that a degree program teaches. And so really, if you have strong analytical and technical skills, STEM majors might be good for you, but they also might be a place to lock in your skills while exploring another pathway. Anything to add there, Max?
Nope.
And generally, I don't know if you agree with this or if this is something that you've come across too. For students considering graduate and professional education, things like medical school, I recommend majoring in a STEM field and something else, because one of the core issues with STEM fields is that there is not a lot of support and designed instruction for reading and writing. And so we have a lot of future medical students who can't churn out a personal essay. And I want them to be able to do that. And I want them to be able to articulate, their interests and to build on the technical and, content knowledge that they can gain in a major, but that maybe they won't necessarily have if they want to do something like open their own practice or pursue a research, position that really can come from that yes and model of college education.
So building on Nick's point, when it comes to med school admissions, and I've helped many kids with their essays, many med schools are not just looking for a 4.0 GPA in STEM. They're also looking for someone with good bedside manners, someone who has a sense of social justice, community service, and that comes alive through the essays. And some of my kids with the most successful med school admittances double majored in, let's say, biochem and cultural anthropology. So especially if you are pre-med, if you're gunning for med school, either your university may require you to take humanities courses, or you should, because it will make you a better practitioner, because so much of medicine intersects with socioeconomic inequities and systemic racism, in terms of the patients you treat, the conditions that emerge, the comorbidities, epidemics. I mean, you can look at the COVID epidemic as a perfect example of different political, social factors that influence who contracted the disease and why and when. So there is an intersection between STEM and the humanities. And if you are pre-med, please, it will help you in the med school application process if you dabble in the humanities.
And the other thing too, and I think Max, you mentioned this earlier, is this idea of connections and your major should really match the rest of your application package. That's true as you transition out of college and into the workforce. If you can't really draw a clear line between what you did in school and what you want to do, that is an issue. And having the opportunity to take additional coursework in other fields gives you that context. And this is the healthcare workforce researcher in me talking, but to your point, Max, knowing about the social determinants of healthcare and being able to describe a particular clinical phenomenon that is important to you from a social or personal or emotional reason is that attractive piece that sort of pulls you into the practice. And it can be hard for students who just start from the position, and I'm sure you've worked with them, I've worked with them, I just want to be a surgeon and I have no further explanation as to that. Well, let's build you an explanation, because clearly there's some reason that you want that, but maybe you need to know a little bit more about that. And maybe that's learned from taking some literature courses or taking some public policy courses and things like that.
Absolutely, Nick. Absolutely. And that segues into liberal arts and humanities. Folks, I can't tell you the number of times, again, I've been doing this 5-6 seasons. I sometimes have kids who actually like literature, who actually like reading. I know it's rare, happens. And they say to me, I would love to major in comparative literature. I would love to major in English. My dad really won't let me. I have to do business or I have to do engineering. And what I'm saying back to you is sometimes having an English or history degree where you actually do the reading and you actually try, that's the key component, could prepare you more in terms of critical thinking in industry, in the private sector, than maybe getting a business degree and being half disengaged as you're sitting in a huge marketing lecture hall. I'm making generalizations, but there's such value to the liberal arts, to the humanities, whether it be learning how to communicate crisply and directly, writing-wise, and even if you're using ChatGPT, knowing what's good word communication so you can edit the ChatGPT properly, okay? So AI can be an adjunct, a tool to allow you to communicate better, but you still need to have a baseline knowledge. Other factors, again, debunking historical mythologies that we've been raised with and understanding why we're in the current situation we are, so culturally and socially, that can really help you as a citizen, as a consumer, as someone in the labor market. And you can apply those skills to almost anything. If you want to go work on a startup and try to figure out if there's a market need for a product, having, again, an English, history, humanities background, or even foreign languages or regional studies, that can set you up. Public service, law, education, you have options. You are employable. And in fact, I'm biased as a humanist here. I think sometimes having a humanities degree where you did the reading and you really, milked from the udders, okay? That can be sometimes more valuable than having a pre-professional degree or where your heart wasn't in it, where you weren't passionate about business. So I implore you as a student or as a parent to really consider the humanities.
Yeah, and again, that can also just be in the form of a major, a double major, a minor, directed coursework where you just decide that you're going to take these things. One thing to note is, and I don't think we've brought this up yet, is some courses will be inherently locked behind being a major. There are certain things that I was allowed to take only because I was a major, and they didn't let anyone just take them. One being forensic anthropology, which is basically medical examination. They were not letting just anyone take medical examination because people were signing up for that just so that they could go to the body lab. So knowing that is very important, but yeah, moving on. So social sciences and businesses, or in business, we kind of have already talked about the core different types of majors, but really social sciences explore human behavior, societal structures, what's leading to what, whereas business focuses on commerce, finance, and management. There's a lot of integration between those two. There's a lot of career opportunities here. Really, it's just, I think, again, I want to pull us back to that idea of interests and alignment. If you can't tell me why you're a business major or a finance major, then you probably shouldn't be a business or a finance major, even if you know in your heart that that's what the return on investment is, because it's not going to make you competitive for things like internships and summer jobs and volunteer opportunities and research opportunities. Really, your major should align with kind of your core ethos as a person, but also give you the flexibility to explore and grow as a person. But yeah, social sciences are a great area. Social sciences and businesses are a great area, I think, for students who don't necessarily want to do the full hard and fast STEM commitment. I have a lot of students who work in research fields and are interested in research, but don't love math, which hurts me as a math faculty member. But social sciences, fields like sociology, political science, they give you the opportunity to learn in a more applied stance, which I think can be really great for a lot of students as well.
So there's one thing you said that really struck with me, and then I want to add on that. You said that your major should align with your ethos. I think that's just a romantic way of that, rather than simply being pressured into a major or doing it just because your parents want you to, or being obsessed or being insecure and worrying about status. Pick a major that on a gut level aligns with who you are. And I thought that was just a great way with your ethos. It was romantic. The thing I wanted to build on here, sometimes the social sciences can give you the best of both worlds. It can be statistics heavy, but also you have a lot of theory that you need to read. So you're dabbling in both the humanities side of things as well as more mathematical, statistical, hard science side of things. It can be an interesting bridge. And yes. Moving on to creative arts and design. So that's another fourth area that I normally, again, group it with the humanities. So generally speaking, and this could allow you could either look at this vocationally, like I want to get a job in graphic design, I want to get a job in video production, or you can look at this more of 4 years, I have time to explore this artistic medium. Maybe I could make a living from this at the end of college, or maybe by the time I'm in my mid to late 20s, I have to pivot to something more lucrative. I mean, there's different philosophies. I think you should be having conversations. If your parents on the call or your kid on the call, be having conversations with your family about your thoughts on this. But again, the creative arts, the fine arts, most schools have excellent departments on this. Another option is you can always double major. If you can always double major between the fine arts and something that could be more employable. Again, I hate to use that language, but welcome to America in 2024, where college tuition is exorbitant. It's the elephant in the room. We have to discuss it.
One other thing too, I think particularly relevant for creative arts and design majors is to really do some soul searching about how talented you or your child actually are. I know I've certainly had the conversation with several students and their parents about you are not going to, Stanford on a ballet scholarship. You are not a competitive ballet dancer at that level, but you are an incredible student who could probably participate in the ballet troupe for non-majors. And so that's something that you should consider, but I don't think that you should apply as a ballet major or as a dance major. And know that, again, in the same way that there are other major types that are more competitive or less competitive, ranging school to school. If your student loves theater, this is another thing that has come up with several of my students, wants to be an engineer but loves theater, you cannot go to NYU, because that kid cannot participate in theater at the level that the theater majors are participating in theater, because they are going to Broadway afterwards. So just having a realistic conversation with yourself and your children about what is going to be a good use of your time and a good return on investment, and also like good for you culturally and socially. You don't want to be the student in a fine arts program that's extremely competitive, that's just there for fun. Because that might be socially challenging. So just things to consider. Anything to add there, man?
I like your point about having the hard conversation about your talent and your prospects and whether you can make it in the arts or you need to have a plan B at the same time.
And yeah, not even necessarily a plan B, but just, do you want to spend your time and have the emotional anguish of applying to a school that you're, probably not going to get into? And yeah, so cross those bridges early. All right, so we've kind of talked about these 3 bullet points as we've been going, which is just the nature of having this conversation. But major choice really does boil down to assessing your interests and knowing yourself. If you love engineering, but you also love musical theater, you can probably do both of those two things, but you should probably do them at a place where, as I just said on the last slide, the musical theater part is not going to be prohibitive to you. Core values, creativity, helping others. If you, again, are interested in, let's say, nursing or medicine, but you are most strongly drawn to neuroscience, you can do a neuroscience major. You can kind of think about what your core values are and how they impact other people. But knowing yourself and knowing what those values are and kind of having those available to check off is how you're going to be able to boil down those decisions. And then you can also just look into different areas. I think a lot of people get boiled down into the same sort of decision soup of, I want to be a physician, so I should be a biology major or a biochemistry major. There are a lot of majors that prepare you for medical school. Look, you can pick and choose based off of your interests. For instance, again, neuroscience or cognitive science, that's going to be a lot more psychological and social of a curriculum than biochemistry, which is going to be explicitly about, you know, the molecular structure of organisms and chemicals and pharmaceuticals and stuff. And so if that's not your vibe, know that there are options. Sorry that I stopped while you were drinking.
No, all is good. All is good. And also many of the slides here we've been covering back and forth, such as the nature of this conversation today. In terms of identifying your strengths and figuring out what you should major in, I think looking at your high school grades, GPA, and what classes you're really good at are a really good indicator what you should major in college. If you really like math and sciences in high school, consider STEM. If you really like English and history, consider the humanities. If you really like AP studio art, consider the fine arts. If you like going back and forth between statistics and history, maybe consider political science or economics. So identify what you're good at. And the other component of this, in terms of what major to put down on your application and what to major in college, your extracurriculars should line up with your major choice. Meaning, kids of mine who do debate team or do mock trial or do school newspaper, that could set them up in terms of English or history or poli-sci, okay? But if you're doing like F1 robotics in school, F1 racing, or if you're doing robotics, or if you're signing up for every AMC math competition, that could point you in more either mechanical engineering or applied or pure mathematics. So your applicant file should line up. The major you put down should be in sync with your major extracurricular opportunities. And again, remember, folks, top schools don't want you to do a million activities. You don't need to do a million activities. You just really need to excel at one or two or three, whether that be having a college level research opportunity in the hard sciences, or a kid of mine who wants to major in poli-sci. I'll be like, okay, we got to get you an internship with your congressperson the summer before. So keep that in mind in major selection. Your extracurriculars should line up with your major.
Yeah, or just sort of sidebar, sort of tangent to that, or they should explain just your other passions. So again, I've had students who have been incredible pre-medical applicants, and they, you know, that same student with Stanford Ballet, she knew that she wasn't going to dance professionally. She knew that that was not her path, but that was her outlet, so that when she was having a really hard time in lab and when she was having a really hard time in clinicals, that is the activity that she went to for, you know, strength and to recharge. And so also just knowing about that can show, knowing that about yourself can show some maturity and, you know, depth of person that is also attractive to schools and will just treat you well as a human and as a student. All right. And I really think that we have talked about this throughout, but yeah, self-reflection, just to hammer home, incredibly important. What are your priorities? Are you trying to make as much money as possible? Are you trying to help as many people as possible? Are you trying to not work a ton so you can focus on your art? Are you trying to focus on your art so much that it becomes your work? Like, ask yourself all these questions and make sure that they align with what you're planning to do. And start those questions early.
No, that's good. Oh, did I? Sorry. Oh,
I
okay.
think this slide might be Andrea.
Consulting advisors. Hi. Okay. Oh, hi, Andrea. Did you about to say something?
You
You're
appear to
on mute, Andrea.
Oh,
You're on
I'm
mute.
on mute. Nope. I just heard my name, but nope. This is all you
Sorry,
guys.
the branding on this one, I couldn't tell if it was supposed to be you popping in backer. Sorry about that, everyone.
No, no problem.
Back to Matt. Max is either frozen or really still. So I'll just start speaking. Consulting advisors seeking guidance. Really, I think this is key. Oh, okay, Max, you're back if you want to jump in.
You go.
I was just say I really think it's key at every stage of the application process, at the stage of being an actual student in college, reaching out to teachers, mentors, people that you trust and respect, other students, older students that you've maybe had in an extracurricular, the soccer lead, your baseball captain, the marching band captain, whatever. Those people can kind of talk to you about what they think might be a good fit for you, and they also might be able to highlight your strengths that you maybe aren't necessarily going to highlight yourself. And I think that can be really useful. But it's never bad to seek guidance and seek feedback because, for instance, my mother was a journalism major and she worked in banking for 40 years. So, major isn't what led her to that career, but it taught her a lot of skills. And she went into that path because, her advisor said, you're a really strong writer, you're a really strong communicator, you're going to be able to sell whatever you need to sell. And journalism is going to help you craft the best narrative possible. And that ended up being true. So sorry to steal your thunder there, Max.
No, I like the shout out about the relative in journalism. That was your mom, you said, correct? Yeah. Good. We need more journalists. Also, consulting advisors, consult us. Work with Quad. We can advise you. Nick and I have been doing this for years. We've advised dozens of kids. I don't know how many kids you've advised. I've advised by now over 150 kids. We can help put you on the right track. Okay. In terms of researching majors, so this is really important in terms of the college supplement, writing the college supplements. Many of the top schools, you're dealing with acceptance rates that are less than 10%, which means you must do your homework. So when it comes to writing the supplemental essay and putting down what major you want to do, let's say political science, you need to dig through the department website and write down courses you want to take, professors who you would kill to do research with. And really, you want to do so much homework that that department cold, okay? So please explore the college website, explore the course catalogs. I often get my kids, I ask them, try to see if you can find a PDF of the syllabus online and check out the syllabus and check out some of the theorists and some of the readings and see if it clicks with you. Other tools in terms of researching majors and getting more information, attend college fairs, information sessions. That's also really important for the admissions officer that you're expressing interest, okay? And that goes in your file. So please do that. And then other online tools and resources, Google. Google is going to be your best friend in terms of getting information on what you should major in.
This is also a little late game, but one thing that I've talked to several students about who have very specific goals is you can use LinkedIn to learn what you should study and where you should study to get very specific jobs. Because if you are looking at, a very niche position that only, 15 people hold in the country, you're going to find commonalities and you're going to find similarities. There's quite a lot of research done regarding, academic lineages and, who hires who and how that's reproduced. And so don't be afraid to just find a position that you're interested in and look at who holds it and then think, well, they went to Brown and they studied this. Maybe I should go to Brown and I should study this.
Brown represent, Brown represent. I love that idea of looking up on LinkedIn and seeing how they ended up in their career and what their major was. That's a good idea. And it's very practical.
You might also find that it's wildly different than what you expected. There are, I've worked with a lot of people who you look at their job history and you think, oh, this must be a hard STEM person. I'm sure it's computer science and mechanical engineering and math. And nope, they're a Spanish lit major who just fell into this and then worked there for 30 years. So, you know, you can find out things like that that are interesting.
Absolutely.
The other thing too is you can also, when you're researching college websites and course catalogs, you can talk to department coordinators and program coordinators about things like job placement and what are their students doing and, you know, XYZ, because they will want to tell you, oh yeah, 40% of our blank majors are doing this year now that they've graduated. And so if it's a pathway that's interesting to you, they're happy to tell you as well. And again, I think we've talked about this kind of intermittently throughout the presentation, but matching your major with career goals can really be a great way to set yourself up for success or set yourself up for flexibility, which should set you up for success. Choosing a major that aligns with immediate career options. If your goal is to get into something and start it fast, there are routes to that. Considering majors that offer versatility for career changes, you know, I think that I'm a person in that bucket of I have a lot of skills and I have too many degrees that say that I have these skills. And so it is not hard for me to talk in a meeting about how I can, you know, advance my career using my skills doing translation, and that I've spent so much time doing, you know, practice-based translation that I can translate science to practice and science to the, you know, popular people. So yeah, just thinking about your short-term goals and long-term flexibility. Anything to add there, Max, that we haven't already talked about?
Huge point, folks. In terms of changes in the economy, automation, AI, a huge percentage of jobs don't exist yet that will by the time you graduate or by the time you are mid-career. So I really ask you that long-term flexibility in terms of return on investment could pay off much more than you expect. Transitioning to common mythologies that we need to debunk, okay? One is that if you pick this major, you're destined for that for life. You're destined for that career. Nope. You can always change careers. You can always go back to school. Or even if you do a humanities degree, that can give you the critical thinking to enter multiple different industries, whether it be copywriting, whether it be startups, whether it be academia, whether it be education, whether that be law. You are not stuck in one profession.
Right. It's also never too late or early to change. You know, I have spent a little bit of time as an academic advisor, and schools want you to be successful, and they want you to be successful in the path that you make, and particularly for programs that are housed in the same college. So let's say the College of Fine Arts, the College of Medicine, whatever. You might find that your school is a lot more flexible with transitioning your biology credits into a neuroscience major than you would have thought. And so don't be afraid to ask, you know, academic advisors and ask the school. But yeah, exactly what Max said. There are really no limitations, and you can flex as you want. Finally, I think, again, we've talked about this, passion and practicality. I love to sing. I am not ever going to be on Broadway. I am not ever going to be a musical performance person. That is just not where my talents lie. So I would never have chosen to be a voice major. In the same vein, my sister is an incredible, you know, visual artist, but she also loves having health insurance. And so she does her art on the side while being a, you know, sales executive, because she knows that she's good at sales. Following your interests for long-term satisfaction. For me, I have a commitment to, you know, growth and education and learning. And so pursuing graduate education, particularly in education, has really helped me do that. But I've also considered job market realities and earning potential. And as a result, I've pushed myself to be a more quantitative person than I imagined myself to be 15 years ago. But I also have fun, and I've spent a good portion of college taking classes that were for fun and were for personal development and were not immediately tied to earnings and returns on investment. So just consider the options and know that you don't have to go fully down one path or the other.
Again, building on Nick, you do not have to go fully down one path or the other. You can balance passion and practicality. You can do what Nick did, passion, but also more quantitative number crunching. You can double major. Please, 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 I'm begging you folks, especially the kids in the room, the teenagers, don't sacrifice your passion yet, okay? You don't need to sell out yet. You can still try to see if you can make it work, if you can make a living, if you can continue in the arts. So please, please don't sacrifice your passion yet. In terms of making the final decision on what to major in, talk to your family, talk to your friends, talk to your teachers. I love Nick's idea. Look up on LinkedIn of your dream job and how the guy or gal or non-binary person got to that position in the first place. Please, please, please do your homework and talk and ask adults and other advisors.
Yeah, and also just remember that it doesn't necessarily have to be final. Your major is flexible. You might apply with a major that you end up not graduating with, and that's okay.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. I think now it's popcorn, Andrea.
Now I'm back in. Let me check the chat first and foremost to see if we have any questions. Shoot, doesn't look like we have any questions in the chat thus far. Again, to our audience, I encourage you to ask away, ask questions, share your story. We're here to listen and we're here to support you in any way that we can. But I think a question that I always love to ask our panelists, and a little bit cliche, but I think it's an important discussion to have. The biggest piece of advice you have for parents, not necessarily just about parents and students, I should say, not necessarily about selecting a major, but this college application process, or even just the college journey, whether that's advice that you wish you had gotten or advice that you give to the students that you work with, or even yourself. I think that's an important one because both of you have a strong background in academia.
Max, you want to go first?
You first, Nick. Yep.
I was just going to say, listen to your kids, listen to the student, because fundamentally they're the ones, even if you as the parent are paying for it, they're the ones that have to execute it. And if executing it makes them resent you for the rest of their lives, not saying that this is personal experience or anything. I have worked with students in graduate school who were forced into a major that they did not love. And it ended up costing them and their families money, time, stress, happiness, because they were pushed in a direction that they didn't necessarily want to go. And when it comes to applying that sort of logic to the process, it's going to be a lot harder for you to write a personal statement about a major that you don't like, or about an extracurricular that you haven't liked but you've done for 10 years. You know, it's much easier to write about what you're passionate about and talking about what you're passionate about and do what you're passionate about. So support your kids and support yourselves in finding those passions and holding on to them, but also know that you can be flexible.
So similar to Nick, I've seen the same thing. I've worked with clients whose parents have forced the kid into a major, and that's really a disaster in the making. I think if anything, the kid and the parent, all of you need to have a conversation, be on the same be on the same page, especially because this is a huge commitment, time and money wise, on what you're going to major, what you're going to specialize in. And I think there are ways of working around this, especially if you're trying to bridge the STEM and humanities, passion versus parents' anxieties about a more employable major. There are ways you can go about this. This does not have to be an either or game.
Right.
Yeah. Fantastic. It doesn't look like we have any questions in the chat, so I think this would be a really great time to wrap it up. Max, Nick, thank you both very much for your time. Audience, thank you for being with us. Please don't hesitate to reach out, whether that's via booking a consultation or even responding back to the emails that you received, the reminder emails, I should say, with any sort of questions that you have. And if I can't answer them, I'll make sure that somebody on our team answers them. With that being said, I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their evening.
Thank you, Andrea.